Good morning. It's December 6th, 7:30 in the a.m. at the Frederick County School Board Administration Building. I'd like to call to order the instruction meeting. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
We have an agenda before us. Do we have any questions, any concerns with the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Okay. Starting off, we have an attendance process update.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll go into new business.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Chair. So we have quite a few items that we're going to be discussing this evening. Dr. Angelo, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you, sir. So we have quite a few items to share with you this morning. First, we are going to provide you all with an attendance update in regards to where we currently are as a school division, as well as some efforts that we are making to improve that. We are also going to provide you with an update on our continuous school improvement plan process. I want to thank our three principals that are here. We have Mrs. Altendorf, we have Dr. Putt, and then we also have Joe Strong back there as well. Sorry, I want to make sure he's here. So we are going to be discussing some of the day-to-day that they are working through with this new school improvement plan process. So thank you all for being here. We also have our recommendations for the 24-25, 25-26 school calendar. We had a very arduous process to get through in regards to putting together these two calendars for you. It was a great process, but there was a lot of work that went into these. So we are going to be sharing the results of that. We also have the update to our Perry weather system. And then every year we are required to review our restraint and seclusion policy. So we're going to be talking through that with you all. And then we have our gifted advisory and special education advisory committee members, because those advise the school board. So you all have to approve the members of each of those committees. So we'll be reviewing those with you this morning as well. So all of this, most of this information is information for you all. However, we have two items that need to go to the full board for approval, and that is the 24, 25, 25, 26 school calendar, as well as each of our advisory group member approvals. So those are the two items that need to go, excuse me, to the full board for approval. And with that, I'll hand it off to Dr. Angelo. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hummer, Madam Chair, members of the committee. First of all, thank you for starting your morning with us. We appreciate that. We certainly enjoy starting our morning with you. I will invite Mrs. Rittenauer, who is our Director of Student Support Services, to talk to you about attendance, answer any questions you may have about the difference between compulsory attendance and the attendance piece that's a part of our accreditation. So, Mrs. Rittenauer.
Clicker, good morning. Thanks for coming in early. Appreciate it. Okay, just a little bit regarding compulsory attendance versus chronic absenteeism. Compulsory attendance is by the state. The legislation is there, 22.1-254, in that it is the responsibility of the parent or legal guardian to have their students enrolled if this child is age 5 by September 30th. So that is, they can choose if they want it to be public school, private school, but they need to be enrolled in an educational setting. With that being said, that's kind of the big picture of compulsory attendance and how children are enrolled up through the age of 18. Then children have the right at 18 if they continue to stay enrolled or not. And of course, in Frederick County, we have a great retention rate, which we're very proud of. It exceeds the state level as far as high school graduation, on-time high school graduation. So the difference between that and chronic absenteeism, let's use a 180-day school day or school year as an example. So if you miss 10% of that, that would be 18 days. So if you missed 18 days or more, you as a student are considered chronically absent. So how do we help our students not reach the 18? And more importantly, we try to work with our kids and find out the why behind it. Why are they missing so many days? Are there obstacles or hurdles or supports that they need in place? And that's kind of where my department comes in, student support specialist, and we work with the building principals and the attendance secretaries at the school to identify students as they're coming up on perhaps chronic absenteeism. We really look at 10 days as kind of a mark. We definitely know there are certain things that are still around as far as students still get sick, students still have planned vacations, other things they go on, and we really encourage parents, if possible, to send their children to school. And then we work with them on a plan if they're starting to get close to compulsory attendance or close to chronic absenteeism. A couple things that we do at the building level, we have what's called a 5-day unexcused meeting, and in that meeting, we work with if a student hasn't been there for 5 days and the parent lets us know, look, these are not excused. I can't get my child to come to school, so we work with them. We'll go do home visits and sit down and meet with them. We'll work with our guidance counselors and our social workers in the school to also build those bridges to identify why. And Bright Futures is a big component too. Sometimes it may be a need that the student has that we can help fill to make sure that they're more comfortable and feel ready for school. So that is compulsory attendance and chronic absenteeism. Any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Rittenauer.
you, appreciate it. Okay, I think up after me, I think we're talking about continuous school improvement. Sorry, Jim, did you, okay.
Madam Chair, committee members, and Dr. Hummer, good morning.
Morning.
I'm going to give you an overview of our continuous school improvement planning process. It is a process that schools use to identify their strengths and areas of improvement, set goals for improvement, and develop a plan to achieve those goals. The continuous school improvement process is an ongoing process. Schools revisit their plans regularly during continuous school improvement team meetings, along with supporting data that they have collected to make sure that they are on track and that their goals are still relevant and make adjustments as needed. So why? Our students, teachers, and community deserve a meaningful and engaging learning experience. Our families deserve a school system that fosters innovative ideas that challenge conventional thinking so learners can realize their dreams and aspirations. In order to accomplish this, schools have to have a continuous school improvement plan. So how? This process takes time and takes patience. The improvement plan methodology follows the Virginia Department of Education Continuous School Improvement Process model that's based on the Plan, Do, Study, Act methodology. When implemented with fidelity, this model works and renders positive results. So what, when, and who? Data is collected and reviewed continuously at continuous school improvement team meetings. Each school identifies a committee that will review the data, create strategies for implementation, and monitor the results. These goals are reviewed every 30 to 45 days, and they can continue from year to year. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Plan, Do, Study, Act process. It is a problem-solving model to help schools articulate improvement changes, implement and carry out the change, measure and study the results, and take appropriate action on deciding how to proceed. The Plan, Do, Study Act provides a standardized method to achieve continuous improvement that can be used by anyone. So before the continuous school improvement planning process begins, schools complete a needs assessment to determine their strengths of the school and areas for improvement. The cycle begins with the plan step. This involves identifying an overarching measurable goal dedicated to student achievement, formulating a theory, and then defining the success metrics. Goals can be focused on enhancing strengths or addressing concerns. Each goal may have multiple objectives or targets along with numerous corresponding strategies. These activities are followed by the do step, in which components of the plan are implemented and a plan is put into action. Next comes the study step, where outcomes are monitored to test the validity of the plan for signs of progress and success or problems and areas for improvement. School improvement teams meet quarterly to discuss the target goal, data, and any changes that need to be made and implemented. The act step closes out the cycle. integrating the learning generated by the entire process, which can be used to adjust the goal, change the methods, form a new goal, or broaden the learning improvement cycle from a small-scale experience to a larger implementation plan. So there are quarterly updates, and members of the school community and community at large are invited to attend. Our schools had one in October. The next one is December 21st, or around that date. That's when they do their second quarterly review. Another one in March, and then another one in June. These 4 steps, plan, do, study, act, can be repeated over and over and over. It's a never-ending cycle. So I think we have Mr. Strong up first to talk about his process.
Good morning. Thanks for the opportunity to come and speak on behalf of Red Bud Run. So I just want to share with you a little bit about our school improvement plan. We have 3 main goals in our school improvement plan. One focuses on Tier 1 instruction, one specifically on science, and then one on parent and family engagement. So the one that is up here on your slide is our goal that's focused on science. And so we did not make science last year on the SOL test, so we're accredited with conditions because of that. And so that's why we chose to have a specific goal focusing on science this year. For other Tier 1 goals and our parent and community engagement, we use a lot of Title I money that helps with that. We've brought in a tutor to help support some of our students. And then we're going to be using some of that all-in funding as well to help support our students with Tier 1 instruction. But specifically, you can see with science there on the screen that we have some strategies that we put in place, and then we have multiple measures that we use to provide feedback to teachers. One of those being performance matters, where our teachers, we work with them to design assessments that are aligned to the science standards. We also complete classroom walkthroughs, where we have a specific form we use to look at alignment to the standard, the engagement of students, and then we provide that feedback to teachers within 24 hours so they can get that feedback and make adjustments as needed. And then we also review their lesson plans for science to look at alignment in the activities and then the science vocabulary that they're including in their lesson plans. So that's kind of an overview of one specific goal that we have in the area that we're focusing on for science at Red Bud. Any questions on that process? All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Dr. Hummer. I appreciate the opportunity to stand before you and represent the wonderful work happening at Frederick County Middle School. To talk about our continuous school improvement plan and following the steps that Dr. Greathouse mentioned, Frederick County Middle School took a whole child well-being approach to our needs assessment. So the team reviewed data that informed both academic attainment as well as the well-being of the students in our school. So examples of academic attainment data reviewed are past SOLs, VGAs, diagnostic data in math and reading. And some examples of school satisfaction data that we took included the K-12 Insight data, which I think everyone's seen, it's on the website, and the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice secondary school climate data. And so some of the things that we found at Frederick County Middle School is the scholars at Frederick County Middle School are experiencing relatively high levels of school satisfaction. However, at the same time, they are academically unperforming, particularly in the identified subgroups of economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. So what do we plan to do about it? Well, our comprehensive school, or our continuous school improvement plan really has 7 total SMART goals, 2 reading, 2 math, 1 science, 1 civics, and 1 attendance. So an example of a SMART goal I have on the board for you is for the 2022-20 or 23-24 school year, the students identified as economically disadvantaged at Frederick County Middle School will increase their pass rate by 5% from 50 to 55% on their math SOL. And so what strategies are we going to use in order to help our students continue to grow? Multiple evidence-based strategies are implemented and monitored. So some example strategies are, first of all, we're just going to align. We're going to align the written, taught, and tested curriculum in the Tier 1 setting. And then we monitor this through content meetings, observations, and reviewing of learning designs. So that's just an example of one of the things. And there's many, many, and you can review those continuous school improvement plans on the website. Any questions I can help you with?
Dr. Putt, my question is with that math goal for the SOLs, and they're going, increasing it from 50 to 55. SOL has been one of my big things that I'm talking about. How are we tracking on that? Are we going up? I know with the SMART goal, something's got to be measurable and trackable, right?
Yeah.
So how are we doing that?
So that's a great question, Mr. Atkins. We actually take formative data all along the way, and we use a program called EDIA to take that formative data, and it breaks it out by SOL strand, and so that and then we break it out by subgroup, so that by the end of the year, when SOLs come around, we're not surprised. We completely anticipate what our rate should be, and if along the way we're not growing the way we think that we should be, then we'll go back to our strategies, review our strategies, and make those kinds of adjustments. So at the end of the day, we can't tell until we go to the SOL at the end of the year, but we're collecting formative data all along the process that really informs whether we're making progress towards that goal or not.
And are we?
We are currently, yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Thank you. Ms. Altendorf, Millbrook.
Good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to come and talk to you this morning about what we're doing with our continuous school improvement plan at Millbrook. And so what you see on the screen is that I've kind of combined multiple pieces there. We have 4 goals that we're working on, but the one goal that's not mentioned on here is for our chronic absenteeism. So I was just focusing on the instructional part for this presentation. And Ms. Rittenauer talked about the chronic absenteeism and what that we're doing each day in the school to address that. So for our instructional goals, we have 3 goals. We're looking to decrease the gap group failure rates by 10% in English for both students with disabilities and our English language learners. So there's 2 separate goals there, one for our students with disabilities and for our English language learners. And then the other one is for math, decreasing the gap group failure rates for our students with disabilities. So those are our 3 goals that we're working on. We took this as looking at this as a whole school approach. So we're looking big picture and how does the whole school help support these students to increase or decrease the failure rates in these gap groups. So what we did in terms of our needs assessment, we worked closely with our math department chair and our English department chair. And we looked at all of the SOLs have an student performance by question data. And so we looked at those and identified the top 3 weaknesses in both English and in math. So in English, we identified the weaknesses for students overall in reading comprehension, inferencing, and vocabulary, sorry. And then in math, we identified procedural fluency, data analysis, and graph analysis. So those were the 6 overarching weaknesses in both English and math. And so then we looked at how are we going to support this school-wide. So our master schedule, we have what we have CLTs, so we have some acronyms in here. Those are our common learning teams. And so those are in our master schedule. So like our World History 1 teachers have time to come together and meet and plan. Our Algebra 1 teachers, our Econ and Finance teachers, our art teachers, all of our teachers in these departments have time to come together and plan, make sure that their lessons are aligned, but then what they're also doing in this time is that they're also creating CUAs. So they're creating common unit assessments or short assessments that are linked to those 6 weaknesses, and they're trying to teach those skills. So it's a whole school effort to really focus on those 6 identified weaknesses. So we have all of these CLTs working on these 6 weaknesses. They are taking this data, they're analyzing the data, in terms of what they're doing for each unit. So it's in the content, but they're embedding these strategies in the content, in their specific content, to help our students whole school. And so they're working on taking that data, and then they're adjusting their instruction based on that data. So if our students are not making the progress that they would like in that content area, then they are adjusting or researching different instructional strategies so that they're seeing growth in our students. And then additionally, because it's hard to take all of that CLT data that's happening in all of these different subjects and trying to make sense and say, as a whole school, are we making progress? So we have a secondary prong approach there, and so what we decided to do is that we're also administering a school-wide benchmark. So we started, we just did our first benchmark. We're going to have 3 benchmarks throughout the year. So we just did our baseline benchmark in the middle of November. So we are still trying to capture those students that were absent that day and things like that. So they're still taking that data or taking that benchmark. That benchmark is a 12-question test. So there are 2 questions that link to each of those 6 identified weaknesses. So that's where the 12 questions come from. So there's 6 questions for English and 6 questions for math. And so we're looking at that and then comparing overall percentages, and then how are our students with disabilities going to be doing, and how are our English language learners, how are they doing and progressing at that time. And then we'll also we are also talking about breaking down the data, because we're in the middle of this right now, breaking that data down into those 6 identified weaknesses. So how are our students doing with that procedural fluency or the data analysis, and seeing where our strengths and weaknesses lie within that benchmark. So it's a kind of a 2-pronged approach. We have our staff who are working in our CLTs with those 6 identified weaknesses, in addition to all of the other content and everything there. But then we have the school benchmark that we're going to be giving. So we have one that we did in November. We're going to do one in March and one in May. And then we also obviously have our SOL testing at the end of the year to assess progress. So those are the pieces that we're doing at Millbrook. Can I answer any questions for you?
Got one. So I got to understand it's probably a lot to juggle, going from fractions to graphing and everything else on the math side.
Mm-hmm.
When you identified through the CUAs that there's an issue, let's say in the beginning of the year, let's say we're doing fractions and we're moving over to graphing for an example. How do you catch up those students while not taking away from the graphing and as we're constantly moving forward? Is there some way, is something getting sacrificed? Is something getting left behind?
No, our teachers, especially like in that example, I mean, they're working and they know where our students are. And then we also have additional programs like the Performance Matters or, there's another online program that they use to help students really work on those foundational skills. So there's constant formative assessment going along in all of the classes all throughout. So that formative assessment is really what the teachers see of where they are and where they're struggling, and then they can change instruction. They can maybe work in small groups and differentiate that instruction for our students to make sure that they are on track and making progress.
Mr. Atkins, Ms. Altdorf, thank you very much for that explanation. Just to kind of provide a little bit more context, that there's a natural phenomenon when we take a look at our students and how they learn and how they perform, and they fall on a bell curve. So we have students that underperform, we have students that are middle of the road, and we have students that overperform, which is fantastic. And all of those students are our students, and there's nothing wrong with any students that are on that bell curve. And as Mrs. Altendorf just mentioned, our teachers do what's called differentiation. And that is why our teachers have a lot to do. I mean, it is not easy to be a teacher, and there's a lot of work that goes into that, because if they have a classroom of 30 students, 5 of them might be English language learners, 5 of them might be students with disabilities, 10 of them might be middle of the road, 3 of them might be economically disadvantaged. You get the gist there. So they are required to work through each of those students and provide so they don't fall behind and so that nothing is sacrificed. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. And as Ms. Altendorf mentioned, there's different tiers. That Tier 1 instruction is where we would like for all of our students to be instructed, but based on how they perform and how they're working through different benchmarks, we provide them with instruction in different settings, but not sacrificing that Tier 1 instruction. Students should not be missing that instruction in the Tier 1 classroom. So if students are being pulled out, or if they're working in small groups, they should not be missing the instruction that's happening in Tier 1. Everybody needs to be receiving some level of either enrichment for our students that are overperforming, or some sort of remediation. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. And our teachers are doing a phenomenal job, and our principals are also doing a good job of maintaining and managing that. But just to provide a little bit more context, but that is a great question because we want to make sure that it doesn't come across that we're sacrificing or falling behind or one student's missing out because of the other. So there's a lot of work that goes into that. That's a fantastic question.
Yeah, it's a very complex process. Can I answer any other questions for you?
I believe, is this the first time you're doing the CLTs and the CUAs?
So we've had our CLTs in place for about 4 years now, I believe. I think we did it the year that we came out of the pandemic. So
Okay.
our 2021 is when we changed our master schedule to include our CLTs. And so our teachers have been working in that master schedule for several years now. We've seen success in our pass rates because of that collaboration with our staff. And we do have a wonderful staff who really work together, and they're trying to do the best they can for our students, aligning our lesson plans, coming up with engaging activities, working through like inquiry-based instruction, those 21st century skills, the collaboration, the communication, trying to embed all of those skills using their specific content to do that. And so we've seen a lot of success, and our teachers appreciate that time to work together with their colleagues.
Okay. Yeah, and I know as we mature, it takes at least 7 times for you to see something to gain that knowledge to really put it together. So I can imagine younger learners have a little bit easier time, but on average, that's 7 times to make it click. So I really enjoy hearing that people are coming together and
Yeah.
putting it into all of the instruction across the board
Yeah,
and not just math and just reading. So I think that's a really
It's a whole school effort.
yes.
Yeah, which is really wonderful to see come together, and everybody's here to support our students.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay, thank you for your time this morning.
I first want to say thank you to our 3 principals that were here this morning. Actually, technically, only 2 of them are principals now because Mr. Strong, of course, is now the Assistant Director of Student Support. And I appreciate your question around students and how do we support students and make sure that they're not missing the instruction that they need in order to keep moving forward while we support them. Learning is an extraordinarily complex process for everybody, right? And so a student may be excelling in one content area and struggling in another content area, or within the same content area, they may excel in fractions and struggle in graphing. As a former middle school principal, I will tell you, it's probably the other way around. They probably struggle in fractions and excel in graphing. It's very complex, and we have to identify, and you think about Millbrook High School that has nearly 1,600 students, that's 1,600 different learners. With 1,600 different backgrounds and experiences, and it's a very, very difficult process to take a 5-year-old and see him through to a graduating senior. I mean, there's a lot that goes into that. It was a very brief overview, really, of continuous school improvement. That is also a very complex process, and it is ongoing. We've been engaged in continuous school improvement in one form or another for decades in the world of education. And so we refine it as we go, and we make adjustments, and you heard that. And these are 3 examples, but every single one of our schools and departments engage in some sort of continuous improvement planning. Because that's how we move forward, right? And that's how we get better. So in case anyone, I did want to mention too the all-in funding, sorry. So I think it was Dr. Putt referenced the all-in funding, and just to sort of give you an idea behind that. So that is specifically focused on primarily students in grades 3 through 8 for the academic piece, and then every student for attendance. And we have submitted that plan. I actually just had a phone call yesterday with someone from VDOE. It hasn't been approved yet. We've been waiting for that. They gave us feedback, and it's minor feedback and adjustments that we'll make and resubmit. We've already met about it and have a plan moving forward, and we'll get that resubmitted next week. So hopefully to get that quickly approved now. But every school is doing it differently because every school community is different and has different needs. But the bottom line is we are supporting our kids, and it is focused on making sure we're not pulling kids out of the instruction they need to remediate them on instruction they missed. That's not the idea behind it, and so that's not how that's being implemented. So we're excited about those plans and excited to see where that leads. I also wanted to just share, in case anybody is interested in seeing any of our continuous school improvement plans, they are accessible on our websites. You can access those in two different ways. The first way is through the Frederick County website itself. If you go to the About link, it'll bring down that drop-down menu, and you just click on Continuous School Improvement Plans, and it has a list of all of them right there. You click on them. It's 3 clicks. About, Continuous School Improvement, and then just pick your school. The other way is if you are actually on the website of the school that you're interested in looking at. So you select schools and you go to that school. So this is a Gainsborough Elementary School website. Again, you click About, you click Continuous School Improvement Plan, and then that takes you to that specific school's Continuous School Improvement Plan. So if you want to see all of them at once, you go through that process from the division site. If you just want to see that one school's plan, you go through that process at that school's specific website. Any questions?
No, thank you for bringing that up. And it is very easy to get to all of these. Like you said, 3 clicks. I went through it myself. I went through each of the continuous improvement plans for each school, and they're very robust. And one thing I constantly saw here, as Dr. Hummer referenced, was a focus on Tier 1 instruction. So, you know, like he said, that we have all these different learners, but we have to make sure that we're getting everybody that Tier 1. I saw frequently economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities, which we know from our previous meeting that that's going to be a focus going forward. So very pleased to see all of that work that went into it. They're very robust. They're organized well. You'll notice that they are different. Each school community is different, like Dr. Angelo said. So very pleased with all of those.
Any other questions? Thank you all very much. All right. I will invite my partner, Mr. Goodwin, to come up. We'll go through the 24, 25, 26 school calendar. Mr. Goodwin.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the committee, Dr. Hummer, good morning to all of you. I was really surprised. I wanted to let you know that Frederick County Public Schools puts a committee together, gets in a room, and then Dr. Angelo said we do this by height. The person that's the tallest has to lead the process. So I want to thank Dr. Angelo for this tradition that we have here in Frederick County Public Schools. So yes, thank you. Actually, I want to thank Dr. Angelo and Dr. Hummer for their trust in me to lead this process. I've participated in this process for many, many years. This is the first time I've led the process. So it was a privilege to work with a committee of almost 40 people. So it was very great representation. Of course, we have a policy which guides our practice to put a committee together. That committee is comprised of teachers, administrators, parents, and employees. We have staff from the central office and support staff. And this year, we're happy to deliver to you a 2-year calendar for you to consider, which has, I think, a lot of great things that are really going to be good. So we had feedback opportunities in person, and then each member of the committee went back and they have their own circles of influence. So whether you're a parent, whether you're a teacher, whether you're someone here, you would get feedback from folks and then use a form. That feedback would all come back to us, which we would share with the committee each time. We actually produced 4 drafts of the calendar before we have the one that we presented to you today. So we did take a look at some of our neighboring communities. Frederick County, of course, is here. We looked at our own calendar from years past. We looked at Winchester City. We had questions about matching up calendars, whether that would work or not. We looked at Clark County, Warren County to the south, Shenandoah County, and then we jumped across the mountain and took a look at Loudoun County as well at the request of a couple of committee members. So we wanted to make sure where we were and what our features were and kind of what other people in the region were doing. Some of the features of the calendar that we're delivering to you for consideration today, it's a 2-year calendar. That's different rather than a 1-year calendar. We feel like this really supports our families and their planning, also our staff, so they kind of know what's coming up. There's new teacher work days that are there for folks who are new staff members that are built in. There's also lots of designated teacher work days. There are open house nights for families, elementary school, middle school, high school. In the materials that were provided to you, you'll note that those are already on the calendar, designated by level, so families can know where to go. And they're not all on the same night. That way, if you have an elementary school child, a middle school child, a high school child, all in your family, you don't have to figure out how to get across the county all on the same night. So they are separate nights. We have transition day for students who are going to be new students into schools. We have professional learning and building professional learning days designated. So it's not just professional learning day and then later on folks find out what that day is going to be about. It's already designated as either a building specific day or a division specific professional learning day. There's a lot of unencumbered planning days, which our teachers ask for. Pre-K and kindergarten registration week is designated well ahead of time. So folks know you will see graduations for Dow J. Howard was added there this year, Jameswood High School, Millbrook, and Sharando. The times are designated there, the nights are designated there. We couldn't put the weather down and request anything cooler on the nights of graduation, but we did put the dates on the calendar, so we're hoping it'll cooperate. And we have sufficient hours and days to cover and extend well beyond the 990 hours or 180-day requirement across all the levels. And if we were to have inclement weather, then that day would be made up from those extra hours. So we didn't have to add days into the calendar. We already have enough hours built into the calendar to manage those days. So the calendars, the instructional time was linked for you. And we do feel like this calendar would do a great job of recruiting and retaining employees at all levels of our staff. So we're proud to present that to you. And then you also were provided with lots of different links for the calendars. We have the calendars available in English and Spanish. Of course, once you determine any questions that you have and we answer those, we'll make those available to families after the full board votes if you decide today to carry that forward to the full board. So we recommend that you please consider adopting this 2-year calendar, and we want to answer any questions you have.
Any questions from board members? I know that a lot of work goes into that. I manage a couple calendars myself at home, and I have to have everything color coded. Sometimes I miss some things, sometimes I don't. But I can imagine how much input and work went into it, and I think it
Thank you.
looks
Did.
great.
Thank you.
And having the
anything-
2 years is a big thing,
Yeah.
too.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Do you have anything to add, Dr. Hummer?
I do. So thank you, Mr. Goodwin. I also want to thank our committee. There's a lot of work that went into that. Dr. Angelo, our staff here. I attended some of those meetings, and we received a lot of positive feedback throughout the process. They appreciated not only us listening, but they appreciated us listening and making the changes that they were recommending, which was fantastic, and they really appreciated that. And as Mr. Goodwin mentioned, we don't want to just assume that people think that there's things happening in each of our schools, like specifically the open house. We received a lot of concerns from parents of exactly what Mr. Goodwin was talking about, because some families had to miss certain open houses because they couldn't get to them because they were on the same evening. So just being more specific about that. We also wanted to take a look at the work days prior to the school year. And as I mentioned to you all when I first started, we only had, I think, 1 day, maybe 2 for new teachers. That's not enough time for our teachers to get ready, to get acclimated. Our staff that put together the new teacher orientation this year went very well. We received a lot of positive feedback. I think our teachers just need more time in the classroom to get ready for the school year. So if you've noticed, we do have 2 additional days, because this year there was 3, so there's 5 days built in for our new teachers. And then also something new I want to draw your attention to, we added 2 additional days for our teacher work days before the school year starts. Because if you take those open houses, and I'm sure our principals can attest to this, that takes a lot of time, and that essentially removes a day of planning to get ready because you're getting ready for your open house. So we wanted to add those days that didn't take away that time for our teachers to get ready for the school year. And a lot of our teachers were very appreciative of that, and it definitely works out with our schedule, so it's not removing instructional time for our students. We also wanted to make sure that we were intentional about our professional days in regards to what those look like. Is it central office professional development? Is it school level professional development? And making sure that we were highlighting that. In addition to adding some additional days like we did last year. So if you see, there's 2 additional days in November that staff have off, so they get that long extended weekend. And then they also have that extended weekend in March as well. We're receiving a lot of positive feedback on that to make sure that we are acknowledging the hard work that our teachers are doing, but not, as Mr. Atkins mentioned earlier, sacrificing that instructional time for our students. So I believe that this calendar is very thorough. It's very well thought out. We've received a lot of feedback. The team did a phenomenal job And then we, like I said, we just want to make sure that we are focusing on those two things of not sacrificing instructional time for our students, but supporting our staff throughout that process. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So I'll make a motion to move forward to the full board recommendation for the 2024, 25, 25, 26 calendar.
Second.
Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, and I thank the committee again as well. Thank you.
Okay, I want to give you an update on the Perry weather system. We shared a couple of weeks ago in an information piece to you that we are purchasing the Perry weather system. Just want to give you an update on where we are in that process and what that means for us. So we have met with our representative from Perry, and we're in the process, sort of a two-pronged approach. The Perry weather system is basically a weather station that will be mounted on the roof of specific buildings, and you can see we're getting 8 units. They'll go on Sharando, Millbrook, Jameswood High School, as well as the Sharando softball field, because the softball field for Sharando is too far away to reach auditorially with the Perry weather system. So we had to add that on there. And then all of our middle schools, Byrd, Ayler, Frederick County Middle, and you'll notice Jameswood Middle School is missing from there because the board office here will get the Perry weather system mounted on our roof, and then they will have access to that because it's right here, it's adjacent. And what that Perry weather system will do is it'll measure weather events. It'll measure the temperature. You can see up there, it identifies temperature, extreme heat, uses a wet bulb globe approach, which is different than a heat index because it takes into account location, it takes into account wind, cloud cover, the positioning of the sun, and then it also takes all of those factors together and looks at it in the context of physical activity and what's safe for our students. And that's what's really going to be the benefit of this, because we've had to make judgment calls sometimes with regard to, do we have a track meet? Do we not have a track meet? Do we keep kids in for recess or allow kids to go out for recess because of the heat? This will give us, so you can set parameters, and this will really give us information that says, this is what the wet bulb globe temperature is. This is the safe level of activity for students. And that may be they shouldn't be participating at all. It may be they can participate without any equipment. For example, in football, no pads, no helmets. So they can practice but not do anything that requires pads and helmets type of thing. It's also going to give us an idea that is going to be really helpful for us actually during games, particularly obviously outdoor games. So for example, a football game, the officials will look in the sky, and if they see lightning, they will pause the game. And you have to wait for 30 minutes, and if there's not another lightning strike within 30 minutes, then they restart the game. However, the parameter around that is if that lightning strike is outside of a 10-mile radius, there's no safety hazard. So we've never known that because we don't have anything that tells us that. You look in the sky, you can see lightning strikes from very far away. So the officials will pause the game. Sometimes they'll call the game. That happened actually this year at least 2 of our schools. And so this will give us the radius, and it will tell us right on our phones, this is what the lightning is, and this is how far away it is. So we can be working with the officials and say, look, this lightning strike, I know you can see it in the sky, it's 22 miles away. We're going to keep tracking that, and if it gets to the point of being 10, then the app will set off an alarm, and that's when we know it's not safe. We have to take a pause. This also has a communication system, which is why we had to put it at the softball field at Sharando, because we have the opportunity then to broadcast to spectators, there's lightning in the area. We are recommending or requiring that we clear the stadium, you sit in your vehicles, and at the time that we're able to resume the game, if that happens, we will call everybody back in. So it's a safety feature for our students, for our coaches, and for our spectators. It will also help Mr. Goodwin and his team in making early morning weather calls, because not only do we have access to the real-time temperature and we can take a look at that radar, but we also have access, this is all free of charge within the context of the contract of the system, to a live meteorologist. and we can actually get a live meteorologist on the phone and say, look, this is what we're thinking, this is where we are, give us an idea, do you see this temperature dropping, do you think it's going to rise, and make some more informed decisions about school closures as well as other cancellations. So we're really excited about this. Mr. Goodwin and I are meeting on Monday to identify levels of permission for the various users. We get 80 site licenses so we get 10 licenses per unit, so it's a total of 80. So we'll be allocating those licenses and making decisions about who has access to what level of that information, and then we will provide that. And I believe sometime in mid-January, they will start installation on the roofs of our buildings. Super excited about it. It's a great opportunity for us, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Always with the questions. So I have a couple questions. First, I want to preface this because it's going to sound bad, my questions are, but I want to preface this with, I think this is a great system. It's going to go a long way for school safety. However, we all have smartphones. We all have Alexa in the morning. Every morning I yell at Alexa and ask her what the weather's going to be like. And that's real time. I mean, it tells me right then. I have weather bug on my phone. You know, I use that on construction sites every day. It tells me how far lightning is going to be away because I have cranes up in the air. I need to know that. I have guys outside doing that. So I'm looking at real-time weather every day using an app on my phone that's free. Why are we doing this with taxpayer dollars?
It's a great question. So the apps on your phone are going to give you information based on where that weather station is. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where those weather stations are that are telling us how far away those lightning strikes are. I know where this weather station is because it's mounted on the roof of our building.
Okay.
So that's going to give us far more accurate location data and information. Additionally, the apps, and I don't disagree with you, although I don't ask Alexa what the weather is in the morning, but I will say that my Google Home does tell me at night what the weather is going to be the next morning when I say goodnight to it. But so I understand what you're saying, and I understand that we have apps and opportunities to look. Weather Underground is a great site to be able to look at. These stations are mounted right here, and they're giving us real-time, constant weather updates that will give us information about what this is looking like for us. And it just helps us make far more informed decisions based on the locations of these devices. This is our community. This is us. For example, Frederick County Middle School, the weather here at Jameswood Middle School and at the school board office is completely different oftentimes than the weather at Frederick County Middle. We will have something mounted on the roof of Frederick County Middle that will give us the weather in that area right then and there. And so we can take a look at that, and it'll save on driving roads sometimes because we don't have to, I mean, these guys get up at 3:30 in the morning to start driving roads in the morning when there's going to be a potential weather event. If we look at the weather station at Frederick County Middle and we can see it, and we know that, yeah, it's 34 degrees at our transportation department off of 522 South, but it's 28 degrees at Frederick County Middle School off of 522 North, and it's snowing. That's a different decision that we're going to make based on that information. So it just gives us far more specific information and detailed information that is location specific. The other piece of it is that wet bulb globe, and I will tell you, I just credit 100% Dr. Hummer. I knew nothing about that. I never even heard of wet bulb globe temperature. But when you start looking at the difference between that and the traditional measures of heat, it's a game changer. And, you know, we've had situations where principals and athletic directors make judgment calls, and, you know, we get criticized sometimes for those things. This will give us far more accurate data, and it's hard to reschedule athletic events. The schedule is packed. Kids' schedules are packed. It's inconvenient for families. It's inconvenient for kids. If we can make more informed decisions that will help us come with a better, smarter outcome, I would say, then to me, it's worth the money.
I guess my next couple questions would be, one, why is this coming to instruction, not building and grounds?
So that's an interesting question. It's actually in conjunction with buildings and grounds from the mounting standpoint, and certainly Mr. Goodwin and I have worked together. But the instruction department has historically overseen athletics, and so this is seen as, in large part, a support of our athletic department. those athletic
And I'm not
decisions.
saying
It's a very
that
good question.
it's not part of the athletics. I know it can be used for a wide range of stuff. It just, with it coming before building and grounds rather than instruction, we could talk about, maintenance cost on it. We could talk about a lot of stuff. And to me, I think it's, kind of inappropriate to have it in instruction and not, as we're adding on to a building, putting a new system into a building. I think we should be putting this before building and grounds.
Gotcha.
So Dr. Angelo, yeah, thank you. So, Mr. Atkins, thank you for that question. And as we've discussed with these committee meetings, there are some that are going to bleed over. So this isn't anything we're trying to prevent from sharing information. This is conversations that I've had with board members. This is information that we've actually added into our weekly bulletin to provide you all with information. We're not trying to prevent any member on this board to see any information. That's why we're trying to be full disclosure with these items. As Dr. Angelo mentioned, this is more of an instructional base because of what it's providing. In regards to adding to a building, sure, I can see that, and this is something we can definitely bring up further at the December 18th Building and Grounds meeting. But this is something that we want to make sure, as Dr. Angelo mentioned, that it's keeping our students safe. It's providing real-time data that we need in order to make these decisions. I can share two experiences that I had. We had a situation over the summer where it was not safe for our students to be outside. And when I had conversations with our high school, the devices that they had was not accurate. And there was a lot more room for error. And that's something that I don't want you all to have to deal with if a student gets injured or hurt because they were outside in inclement weather. That's something that I know my staff and myself don't want to have to live through, because that's the last thing we want for our students to be hurt. And then the other example was I was at a sporting event. And I'm not aware of any other device that will show us, unless it's something here to show us where that lightning is. But I'll reference Mrs. Altendorf, because I was standing next to her looking at her phone, and all she could see were a bunch of clouds on her phone, but we couldn't tell where those lightning strikes were actually happening, where this device shows them specifically where those lightning strikes are happening to continue the game or to cancel the game. So there's nothing hidden here in regards to keeping information. I'm not saying you're insinuating that, but we want to get these items forward and just provide you with that information, so it's real time and you all see that. So if this is something that we can bring up at Buildings and Grounds, absolutely, we can do that. But this is something that the other members of that board are aware of this, but we can definitely have more conversations about it.
So then, I guess another question would be, what's the cost of the system to the school? Do we have to put, maintenance staff through training or anything on how to maintain this system? What kind of maintenance goes into this system, and who, is it warranted? What are we?
Yeah, so great questions. So there's no maintenance on our end of the system. The maintenance comes with the contract. The life of each system is somewhere between 7 and 10 years, is what they're saying. These are all over the country. Universities use them for college football games. Airports use them for flight delay. I mean, they're all over the place. The training probably is really on our end, the user end. But I have to tell you, I logged on. I created a user account. I logged on yesterday, and I was able to look at information. I mean, it's not that complex of a system to use. From, as I said, from the maintenance standpoint, the Perryweather system mounts it with the. Obviously, we will have a member of facilities there as they mount them. So we've approved the location of the mounting, working through our facilities department, and a member of facilities will be there for each process of getting those up on our roofs.
And what was the cost per unit?
I can't remember the cost per unit, but the total cost is $21,000.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a little higher initially because you have to, the installation and the startup and all of that, but the ongoing cost is $21,000.
Okay, easy enough.
And that's total, not per unit, that's total.
That's total, yeah. And we got it looks like 7 of them, so about 3,000 apiece, or 8, I'm sorry.
They're 8.
So awesome. Yeah, I like I said, it's going to sound a little rough with all my questions, but I want to get some more information, get the information out publicly.
Yeah.
I know the 3 people who watch this on YouTube will probably see it, and hopefully they tell their friends, like, share, and subscribe. But yeah, I just want to make all that information out there publicly. So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the question. They're good questions.
Appreciate
Valid
it.
questions.
I will tell you, I've seen the Perry system because my daughter plays soccer, and she plays a tournament in Colorado where you can sort of like see like for miles and miles and miles, and that lightning, we were at a tournament last year and there was lightning striking it, and in my mind it's like close, but then you can see it getting closer and then it hit and then the system goes off and everything, which allows you. If you're within that 10 miles, you can still play. But once it hits that 10-mile mark, they stop it. And then we actually started sooner than when I thought we could actually start because I'm still seeing lightning. But then, it's 10 miles on the other side, pass. So it's a great system. The ability to go on and make announcements and things like that is very worthwhile. And so it's well worth the money.
The other big piece of this, honestly, is graduation. And I know it only happens once a year, so that's not the primary driver. But I can tell you the number of years that we've been huddled around, weather underground, looking at radar, trying to make the best decision. And, do we go? Do we pause? Do we go? Do we pause? This will really be helpful with that as well. Any other questions?
Are we going to, since it brought up graduation, didn't think about that, but are we going to put one at Dow J then?
Well, the one at Millbrook is close enough to Dow J to be able to measure. We had that, actually, we did discuss that.
Yeah, and the reason I asked that is that I was thinking about Millbrook, but then we're going from Shranda to Shranda softball field.
Yeah, so part of that is Title IX. We have whatever we provide for one, we have to provide for all, so that's part of it. But the other piece of that is the communication piece. So it won't have the capacity to blast communication from Millbrook to Dow J, but Dow J's graduation area is small enough that we can just simply stand up and say, everybody get to their cars, and everybody will get to their cars. It's a little bit of a different system there.
All right, cool, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will invite Dr. Michelle Sandy, our Director of Special Instructional Services, for the annual policy review of 435P. Dr. Sandy.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hummer, our audience here, and those watching on YouTube, those three individuals. Thank you for being with us this morning. I have two items for you this morning. The first is our policy review for restraint and seclusion. I want to provide you with a little context. You might remember that there were new regulations that were put in place January 1st of 2021. In December of 2020, members of our board as well as our special advisory committee had provided feedback. We had been provided information from our attorneys, and we have a new policy based on all of that information. In reading the policy, you'll know that there is a review annually of this policy that has to be done by the board, and that's part of the process that we are here for this morning. Just also want to provide some additional context that the policy is for general education as well as students with disabilities, and the policy indicates when a restraint may be acceptable. We also have procedures that are very specific in what teams must do. If a restraint occurs, there's an incident report that must be filled out, sent to the parents, and then there are processes and procedures following all of that. We have that in our administrative guidelines for special instructional services. Our buildings have access to all of that, and then there's also a master review of all of that data. So this is just one part of that policy review for you this morning. Any questions you have on that? All right. The second item, Dr. Greathouse will come up, but I'll go ahead and do the Special Ed Advisory Committee. You have a list of committee members before you. Draw your attention to a few things. This is done annually, so this will require action from the board to approve those members. These individuals were brought before our SEAC committee last spring. Many of our members will continue from one year to the next. We've included all members. You'll see on there our chair is Ms. Shantae Washington, our vice chair is Mindy Levan, and our secretary is Laura Jarrell. We also have our student member, who is Anna Borst, and we've had a change with Access Independence. One member left, and Stephanie Pine has joined that. So this will require action from the board to approve those members of our SEAC for the 23-24 school year. And then I'll invite Dr. Greathouse for the Gifted Advisory.
doing them all together?
Do you want to do them together?
I would recommend doing them individually. So if we want to hear about the gifted, and then we can go ahead and approve them individually, please.
I'll make a motion to move forward to the full board consideration for the gifted advisory committee members presented before us.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So I think I'm done.
Yeah.
Just did
No,
gifted.
we just did gifted, so we're talking about SEAC.
They're out of order there.
Yeah.
On there.
Oh,
I
you are
asked the
correct.
special
I'm
advisors
sorry.
actually
I was going down.
So
My
need to make a motion to take back,
Strike from.
yeah,
strike.
strike that.
Okay, I got you. I'll make a motion to move forward to the full board for consideration of the special education advisory committee members. Sorry about that.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, sorry about that. I was just going down the sheet.
So we still got. No, that's already been voted on. It's done. We need to take it back, though. Nobody. Well, no, I
Yeah, we
was
did.
asking if I need.
Oh, okay, I apologize. I thought you were making
Right.
a motion to.
So how do we?
Can,
There needs to be two motions. Sorry, I'm trying to remember. If there's a motion to reconsider, a motion to reconsider the gift, the approval, or the moving forward of the gifted advisory members. And then if you do a motion to reconsider, then she can present, and then you can do another motion
Okay.
to accept.
I'll make a motion to reconsider the approval for the gifted advisory committee members.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Okay, there we go.
All right. So like Dr. Sandy, you have received a list of the gifted advisory committee members for the 2023-24 school year. And I'm requesting board approval for that list of members. We have not met yet, so we don't have a chair. We'll do that at our first meeting.
So should we wait until there's a chair?
no, that's not, that's just
No.
information that
Yeah.
Dr. Sandy mentioned, but it's not required for you to approve that. You just have to approve the members on that committee.
Okay.
We'll do this again. Oh, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the members for the Gifted Advisory Committee to the full board.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
There we go.
Do we have any board member comments? Thank you, everybody, for presenting today. I know this was a lot of hard work, especially with the calendar and the continuous school improvement planning. I think everything was very well prepared and presented, so thank you again. Also, thank you for meeting early in the morning. I know it's not an easy task.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye.